The central cause of the American Civil War was slavery. The people who lived during the time had no question about what the central cause was. It's only after the war, during the remembrance periods and the memorial periods and the memoir period, that people start looking for another reason, another example. I work at the American Civil War Museum in Richmond, Virginia, and frequently people who come through the door with a lot of questions, and it's always about, what is the Civil War about? At the eve of the American Civil War, the states that will eventually make up the Confederate States of America combined have the 6th largest economy in the world. What is at the core of these states' economies? Slavery. It is the largest enterprise. It is where the greatest amount of wealth is held is in human beings and the products that are produced by them. So they have no reason to think that they cannot support themselves. They have no reason to think that they cannot have a nation that at its cornerstone is these two extremely important ideas to them. And that was, number one, slavery was the natural position for Africans, and number two, that white folks were superior, and they were willing to build a nation on those two cornerstone concepts, and they did. When you look at all of the secession documents that were put forth and the proclamations and the resolutions, they are very clear that slavery is central to, quote, our way of life, that there is a feeling that the election of Abraham Lincoln and the rise of this new Republican Party was a threat to that. Slavery is not just an agrarian system. Slavery is being used in factories, it's being used in homes, it's being used in commercial businesses, and of course, it's being used in fields of varying types. At the time, especially in the South, the key to gaining wealth often was through the institution of slavery. So the American dream was as much about getting land and then having slaves to work it. That's where people saw their path to greater wealth and opportunity for themselves and their families, creating generational wealth. And this is a society that does elevate white people simply by being white above black people or any other person of color that was around at the time. It is a system where one aspires to having that level of wealth and power and control that slaveholders had. While slavery definitely existed in some northern states, the difference is many of those northern economies were not solely based on slavery. They tended to have a much more mixed economic model. The Confederacy absolutely went to war to preserve the institution of slavery. This is what they meant by preserving our way of life. The northern states, however, they don't go to war to end slavery. They go to war to preserve the United States as a whole unit. It is not until later, after 1863, that the American Civil War becomes a war for freedom.